Alright, this is number 47 on page 217. The question is to sketch a continuous curve for y equals f of x with the following properties, and then they give us these 8 properties, and we're supposed to label coordinates where we can. Okay, so they give us a bunch of different properties. Some of them are talking about f, some of them are talking about f prime, and some of them are talking about f double prime. I find it personally useful to go through those in that order. Do the f's first, put that stuff on the graph, do the f primes, think about what that means, and then do the f double primes. So I'm going to go through it in that order. F of -2 equals 8. That's just a point on the graph. When x equals -2, y equals 8. So I'm going to say that this spot right here is -2, and my graph should be up at 8. It's a dot on the graph. F of 0 equals 4. When x equals 0, y should equal 4. That's a dot on the graph at 4. When x equals 2, y equals 0. That's a dot on the graph right there. And if that's all we did, it would look like a straight line, and we might think we should draw a straight line through it. But that won't satisfy the rest of these requirements. So we're just putting those dots on the graph. And since it does ask us to label coordinates where possible, we'll go ahead and write those in. This is -2, 8. This is 0, 4. This one is 2, 0. And we've done those 3 requirements. Okay, now it also says when f prime, when x equals 2, f prime is the same thing as what it is when it's -2. It's 0 in both those places. At x equals 2 and x equals -2, f prime equals 0. That means our graph should have a slope of 0 at x equals 2 and x equals -2. I find the best way to put that in the graph is to draw a real short little tangent line with the appropriate slope at those places. So that means that when I pass through this point, I should be horizontal. When I pass through this point, I should be horizontal. It didn't say anything about when x equals 0, so I'm not drawing a tangent line there. Alright, so that's going to give us this. F prime is a positive. Oh, I've got a typo here. Let me fix this typo real fast. F prime is a positive for absolute value of x greater than 2. That's right. This one should say f prime is negative when absolute value of x is less than 2. Okay. So f prime is a positive for absolute value of x greater than 2. In other words, for any values of x that are bigger than 2 or less than -2, absolute value is greater than 2, then f prime should be positive, which will mean it's going to go uphill. So I'm going to kind of break this graph apart here. F prime is positive. Out here it should be going uphill as you read left to right. Out here it should be going uphill. F prime is less than 0 for absolute value of x less than 2. In other words, between -2 and +2, it's less than 0. Then it should be going downhill everywhere in between those two numbers. Now, that might seem obvious from the points, but remember, we could have done something that looked like that. We didn't have any information that said that wouldn't work, but it's supposed to be downhill for this entire region, and uh-oh, look at that. It's uphill right there. So that's no good. I'm going to take it back out of there. That will not satisfy our requirements. Okay, so I'm not actually drawing anything right now with the uphill and downhill. I'm just making notes. Uphill out here, downhill here, uphill there, and that's going to satisfy these. Now let's do the rest of it. Concavity comes from f double prime. It's negative when x is less than 0. That means for everything over here, everything x less than 0, it should be concave down. So it's going to be concave down all through here. Well, now we can draw it. It's got to be uphill and concave down, and then it's got to be downhill and concave down. It's got to go through that point there. Okay, then f double prime is positive for positive x. That means it's concave up over here. It's got to go through this point with a horizontal tangent. It's got to be downhill through here and uphill through there. So I'm going to go downhill, concave up, horizontal tangent, uphill, concave up, and there's our graph.